The Leafs lay another egg on home ice as the offense continues to run dry. We'll recap the loss to Minnesota and explain how bad the Leafs have been on home ice of late. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf Centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I do not recommend using that $20 off to go to a Leaf game because they can't score right now and they can't win on home ice. So maybe use it for a Raptors game who surprisingly are winning games right now on a 5-game heater after trouncing the Wizards. You can go listen to our boy Sean Woodley over on Locked On Raptors if you want a positive podcast. But if you're ready to rip into the Maple Leafs, stick around because that's what we're doing here today, buddy.
Hold. If you go to Locked On Raptors right now, they're mad that the Raptors are winning right now. This is a team that needs a good draft pick.
That's true.
You can't do this right. The Leafs can't win right, and the Raptors can't lose right. It's a bad time right now in Toronto.
And then you've got the Jays.
Anybody.
And the Jays can't get anything right. They just can't get anything right. They can't trade. They can't sign. They can't do nothing. They can't hit international free agency market, the prospect pool. They can't do nothing right. The city, the sports fandom, it's screwed. If you're a Toronto sports fan, you're screwed for life. It's such a cursed city when it comes to sports. The Leafs falling 3-1 to the Minnesota Wild in what's going to be their final home game until February 22nd when they host the Hurricanes. They'll return from the Four Nations break because this was the final home game here. And then they've got a 4-game road trip out west, taking on the Western Canadian teams in Seattle, and then a nice little 2-week break for the Four Nations Cup tournament, which we have an update on Austin Matthews in a little bit, by the way, on that. And thank God, because the Maple Leafs have been horrendous on home ice recently, tonight being another latest edition of it.
It's the worst ticket in town. I mean, you're bang for buck. It has not been for a long time, but these last, how many games? You had a shutout loss.
3 games in a row, they've scored 1 goal. 1 goal in 3 games.
I'm pretty sure the game before that was a shutout loss to the Canucks.
You want to their last few home games, a 3-1 loss to Minnesota tonight, a 5-1 loss to Columbus last week. They beat Tampa 5-3. They beat New Jersey 4-3. And then they lost 4-1 to Dallas and lost 3-0 to the Canucks. So yeah, they're 2-4 in their last 6 games on home ice, scoring a collective, 1, 5, 10, 12 goals in 6 games. So you're averaging 2 goals a game over your last 6 home games. That's brutal.
It's unacceptable. It's not there's no reason for it because you just mentioned you scored 5 on Tampa. Yeah, I know Tampa's not exactly thriving right now. You scored 4 on New Jersey. They were doing pretty good up until Markstrom got hurt.
Yeah.
Right? It's blasphemy. I didn't think this team was going to miss John Tavares this much.
Yeah, it kind of stems back to that. Yeah.
That, I don't think that was, even when he was still here, they had the shutout loss to the Canucks. They lost that game against Dallas. So it's not like this is just what I know. Some people are like, they're missing Tavares and missing that. They were still doing this with those guys in the lineup. This is not new, guys. It's not new.
I actually went and uncovered some pretty gross splits when it comes to the Maple Leafs at home. Because if you recall, they were the NHL's best home team in the first, quarter of the season. You look at the first 16 games at home this year at Scotiabank Arena. The Leafs were 12-4, had a plus 18 goal differential and a goals against average of 2.00. When you only allow 2 goals a game, you can win a lot of hockey games. And that's what they were doing in the first half of the season. You look at the following 15 games, and it has been the complete opposite. They're sub 500, a 7-8 record, the last 15, with a minus 12 goal differential, and they've allowed 3.47 goals against. And since Anthony Stolarz has gone out, this team's home penalty kill has been 55%, Dave. So they're not scoring on the power play. They can't stop a penalty kill. They can't score at 5-on-5, and they can't stop pucks. What is going on with this team? I thought Craig Berube was supposed to help this team defend and keep the puck out of the net. Isn't that what Brad Treliving said they wanted to do? Wasn't that literally job number one this year, was keep the puck out of the net? That has not been happening of late at home.
It hasn't, and it's even on the road too. Like, you look at that game against the Senators, a lot of the same thing. The only time this team looked competently offensively was against the Montreal Canadiens, where they ripped off 7 goals. Maybe it was just a really bad goaltending performance, because it started to look like a bit of an outlier when you see how the last couple weeks have gone.
No, for real. It kind of does. Like, outside of that little stretch there, they really have not been able to muster up any offense. They had that little 3-game win streak where they scored 4, 7, and 5 against Jersey, Montreal, and Tampa. Outside of that, one goal, shutout. Scored 3 against Carolina in a 6-3 loss, and then they scored 3 against Philadelphia. Like, they just have not really been an offensive juggernaut, which I don't know about you, Dave, but the core four is kind of paid to be an offensive juggernaut, if you haven't realized. And that's been the identity of this team for years. I'm almost starting to think if there's a bit of an identity crisis with this team. And it's so unfortunate, because I think we're very gung-ho about, the new coaching staff coming in and what that could unlock. And perhaps this team's finally ready for, that type of style of coaching. But maybe it's not, because I still see some of the stupid brain dead plays that they've been making over the last few years. Like the Mitch Marner, I don't know if you recall this play. Like, I was going to get to it in the good, the bad, the ugly, but I want to get into it right now. There's a play he made tonight with the game on the line in the final minute. They're pushing to try and get the tying goal, and a little backhand muffin through the neutral zone and just barely anything on it. And it gets picked off and sent the other way. Luckily, it did not end up in the back of the net, and it didn't cost them the empty netter. They did eventually get scored on the empty net. That wasn't the play. But I'm thinking to myself, how do you not, with urgency and purpose, get that puck on your forehand and fire it across the ice to Austin Matthews? Like, time is at an essence in that point in the game. He's just nonchalantly trying to push it, little push with his backhand. Like, just stupid stuff like that I know drives Craig Berube just crazy. And they're still making silly drop back passes and dumb backhand plays in the neutral zone like that.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? Like, it's one thing if the team loses and you see, a huge effort from them and are getting a lot of, maybe you get a really good goaltending performance. But then when you see lazy, and I'm calling them lazy plays because they are lazy plays,
exactly what it
like
is.
that to me should set like the whole coaching staff off. After the second period, when you saw Craig Berube go, did you see him walk? They showed the shot of Craig Berube going off to the bench to the locker room. I'm like, he looks pissed.
Dude, they slept walk through the first 2 periods. Like, what was that?
Yeah, I know. It's bad. It's not inspiring hockey. And if I'm a Leafs fan paying money for those tickets, I'm disgusted. I mean, first off, you're doing it to yourselves, guys, paying all that money for those tickets. No one force fed you to take.
I'm not gonna blame fans. They can do whatever.
I'm not blaming fans for that.
I get that, but you do have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner in the last couple of weeks coming out here and squawking about how they haven't gotten the support from the fan base. You put on an effort like that, you're not going to get much support. Like, I'm sorry. Hey, look, you look at tonight, the Wild have not been playing good hockey, and they're extremely shorthanded. No Jonas Brodin, one of their best defensemen. No Kirill Kaprizov, their best player in general. The Leafs had 3 days rest in between their last games. There was no excuse to lay an egg like that. It's not like they were tired, back to back, coming back off a long road trip. No excuse to absolutely crap the bed through the first 40 minutes. Sure, they woke up in the third. They had an excellent third period. Clearly, Craig Berube was pissed and did tear a strip off that team in the third period. But why did it take so long for them to get the message? and it was too late. Gustafsson made some stops. Sure, there were a couple posts tonight that could have went the other way for Toronto. I think they technically won the expected goal battle, whatever that means, but it was a pretty low event hockey game in general, and just a couple of bad mistakes is what cost the Leafs as per usual, and ultimately it's another 2-point sunk, and it just continues to really hurt this team. Like it's so weird because I know they're in first place in the division, and we should be still
not anymore.
Well, Florida got the 2
past them now.
All right, there you go. Because the way that they've played in the last 2 weeks here, they had a nice little 5-point cushion at one point, and now dissipated, gone, and already you're thinking, maybe this team, is not going to finish at the top of the tower here in the Atlantic, which is going to be a bit of a dogfight. And they were looking like they had a chance to separate themselves if they won some games here. And look, some very winnable games. Look at the last Minnesota, extremely shorthanded, had a chance tonight, didn't get it done. You went into Ottawa, which is basically like a home game. They lost that game too to the Senators. Columbus, yes, they're playing better of late, but they're still a team that you got to beat. Vancouver was playing awful at the time they played them. They're still an awful team because of the situation. Somehow you get shut out by the Canucks. Like, it's just been a brutal stretch here outside that little 3-gamer that they had in between where they rattled off wins against Tampa, Montreal, and Jersey. But I don't know. It's I didn't expect to come onto the pod today with a little fire in my belly, but when I see a performance like that, it really kind of grinds my gears. Why don't we come back? We can get more deeper into the game. We got the good, the bad, the ugly to get into, and a few updates in practice as well. We officially have word on Austin Matthews and whether or not he will or won't participate at the Four Nations Cup coming next month. So we'll get into all that and more next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Attending an NFL playoff game is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently purchased some tickets through the Gametime Picks app, and you were sitting there browsing through the deals. It was simple. I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event. The app's features like seat views before you can buy them, the all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkouts. It really made the experience smooth and reliable. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and the lowest price guarantee gave me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NHL and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always, Monday through Friday. Brand new episodes coming out to you free and available wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube. We'd ask if you are enjoying the podcast, whether you've been a longtime subscriber or you're a longtime viewer and you haven't subscribed, please do. That'd be greatly appreciated for us. Leave a like and a comment down below. Are you fed up with the Maple Leafs and the lack of scoring? I know we certainly are. 3 games, 3 goals. What is that for a team who's predicated around scoring? Just a brutal little stretch here and another bad game here tonight against the Minnesota Wild. We do this after each and every loss, Dave. It seems to be happening a lot more often recently. The good, the bad, the ugly. We'll start with maybe a positive. We could throw a positive bone out to the team. We spent the first 15 minutes torching them. What was good tonight?
Well, William Nylander continues to play good, even though he's been given nothing to work with.
No, you don't like Pontus Holmberg and Max Domi as his line mates? Not a fan?
Oh, I don't mind Max Domi, but Pontus Holmberg, how is this guy still in the top 6?
Dude,
How?
I really don't know. Like, I just don't know the answer to that question. They don't have anyone else. Like, who else are you going to put? Like, David Kampf doesn't belong there either. You're not going to throw Fraser Minton into the fold. Like, your best bet is to put Max Domi there. I don't know why they
Bingo.
refused. Well, I get it, but like for whatever reason, Berube's like, nah, he's a winger now. And just even though they're so thin at center, he's like, no, he's a winger. He clearly can't. He clearly doesn't trust him on the defensive side of the puck to play him and give him the role of center. That's clear as day to me.
Yeah.
Which is concerning considering he just signed what 3-4 year deal with the team. Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
William Nylander tonight out on his goal. If you watch the replay, just decides, okay, I'm going to net. I swear, I hope I get a pass that's good enough to bury it, and he buries it.
Yeah.
Since Tavares went down with the injury on Jan 16, in those, I think it's been in the last 6 games, Nylander has 5 goals. His play has not dropped off.
Nylander's played well. Nylander has definitely played well over the last, couple of games. He's getting his opportunities. He's also getting some favorable, zone starts. I think his zone starts have been, wildly high compared to when he was playing with Tavares. It was a little more split. But he also he torches the Wild. That's now 6 straight games against Minnesota that he's scored a goal. I think on yesterday's podcast, I said, FanDuel best bet, William Nylander, anytime goal, paying plus 115. Cash that one.
Could have had
You're
2 in
welcome.
this game.
Could add 2. Yeah, the one he rung off the post. Another, breakaway Willie had another opportunity. Thought he was going to bury it, but, hit the post, scored later in the game, obviously. Yeah, I think you can give him some love. I think the third period, the Leafs played well. I think you can give them some love for the third period. It's way too late to finally wake up and play the game. But they won 68% of their minutes in that third period. They outshot Minnesota 12-5. They didn't allow a single high danger scoring chance in that entire period. Spent most of the time in the offensive end. So, you got to give the Leafs some credit for the way they played there in the third period. So, that's I guess like one of the lone positives I suppose we can give Toronto tonight is the third period was decent.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe you can play that over 60 minutes rather than 20.
Would be nice. I think they also would they win like 60% of their faceoffs or something like that. 62% in the faceoff circle. So they were doing well in the faceoff dot too, which usually when you win 62% of the draws, you usually have a much better fate than a 3-1 loss. But they did not clearly. The bad, Dave. What sticks out to you as the bad?
The first goal that they allowed.
Rielly's effort on that goal, man. Like that's tough. That's a tough look.
Between the Rielly giving up the puck below the goal line, Holmberg deciding I'm going to try to swipe at the puck rather than get the man that the puck is going to. The breakdown in coverage is terrible. Like, it was a colossal failure all around. But yeah, Morgan Rielly's got to be better there, man. Like, it's bad because he's feeling it. He's heard the noise. It's been constant about his play, and like Craig Berube said tonight, yeah, he's got to be better. But he's like, I'll give Berube credit. He's not putting it all on Rielly.
Right.
Like everything that's been going on, which that's what the coach is supposed to do. But yeah, no, like he needs to be better. Just everyone needs to be better on that play. Like that can't happen. That's their fourth
line. The fourth line.
Fourth line. You got
outworks.
Outworks your second, technically your second line, and your second
your
defensive pairing.
Top pair. Like McCabe and Rielly. Like that's your top pair.
Yeah, they played the most minutes, I think, tonight.
Like
so
that's your top pair is McCabe and Rielly. So like you get beat by your fourth line just because of lazy back check efforts. It's not great. And you lose a loose puck battle in behind the net. You turn it over and it ends up in the back of your net a few seconds later. And Craig Berube on Morgan Rielly said this, quote, "Can Morgan play better? Yes, he can. We all know that. He knows that, and he's trying to work through it right now. It's a team game. It's not all on Morgan. He's just got to stick with it." And Morgan Rielly said this tonight, quote, "I'm trying to keep everything in check. I feel good despite numbers and whatnot. It's a battle right now, just trying to compete and play the best I can. We all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform, and I'm no different." You look at Morgan Rielly's numbers this year. Now, I know plus minus isn't necessarily a great stat to use, but like Morgan Rielly has been on the ice for 17 more goals against than he's been on. He's a -17 this year. The reason why I think that is somewhat of a relative stat to use is because the next worst on the team is like -6. So like there's an 11 goal differential there between Rielly and the next worst player on the ice. It was also Phil Myers, Rielly's partner. So, was it the chicken or the egg on that one? I think it's notable. He's definitely feeling it. It's kind of been tough to watch him continue to dig the puck out of the back of the net game in and game out, but I don't know. It's he's the longest tenured Leaf, and it's just been a bit of a rough season for him, and certainly the stretch here. A couple games with McCabe was okay, but tonight it I don't know. It's not like they played horrible all game long, but just the glaring mistakes seem to really stick out.
It hasn't ignited the spark I think that they're looking to ignite by having the two of them play together. Yeah, it's been fine, but it hasn't been what I think it should have been, which was a clear push to a more positive direction for Rielly and getting him building up his confidence again.
Yeah. Well, I think David Alter wrote a piece about it yesterday in the Hockey News, and pretty much he said, yeah, it's improved Rielly's numbers a little bit. Like the shot share is up a little, but it's also decreased Tanev's numbers as well. So like, the give and take, I don't know. We'll see. To me, it kind of screams they still need to find another top 4 defenseman. They need to find a partner for Rielly that works and allow McCabe and Tanev to be a shutdown duo because they need that. They need a pure shutdown duo, and then they've got to figure out a secondary pair that works as well. And it has to factor in Morgan Rielly, who's making $8 million. Has to. Just flat out has to. But tonight didn't love his game either. He was also part of my bad. And then my ugly, I had that Mitch Marner play that I mentioned before. Like, I know it's just a little play, but it's just one of those, like, lazy plays that I know just Craig Berube ripped into him for it afterwards. Say, Mitch, you've got to make a purposeful pass in that situation. You can't just float it through the neutral zone with no zip and expect no one to break in on that and grab that puck. That's exactly what happened. Didn't cost them on that exact play, but it certainly broke up an opportunity for them off the rush. And it was just out of sheer laziness. You just don't like to see it, especially, in a 1-goal game when you lose by a goal or by 2 goals, I guess they end up scoring empty netter after that. It just kind of amplifies and magnifies that play a little more.
Not only that, it's like, buddy, can you try to put yourself in a scoring situation rather than just passing the puck off? He has 2 goals. Like, since the calendar flipped, since he scored the hat trick against Detroit, he has 2 goals. 2. This is someone that right now everyone's talking about how much is Morgan Rielly going to make. I think I want to see more than 2 goals in a 30-day span for Morgan Rielly.
Mitch Marner.
Sorry, Mitch Marner. I'm pissed with both of them. But like, you're getting prime opportunities right now. You're with Matthew Nyes out, with John Tavares out. Craig Berube decided, let's load up the top line and give you Bobby McMahon. And then what's it like? And it hasn't done anything. It's like it's in a way, it's almost like, okay, Bobby's going to take all the shooting opportunities. What? No, it's Marner, it's Matthews. The 2 of them have to be the ones to pull this team out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think Marner's been more of the problem, in my opinion, because he's not scoring. He needs to start scoring.
Sure, you want to see a little bit more offense, especially when no one's scoring. You get a little bit out of Mitch, but he's more the playmaker. So I would expect, the thing is Austin and Willie are scoring, but they are quite literally the only ones who are
Exactly.
scoring. And that's the problem. Like you get one from Willie tonight. All right, Bob McMahon, I guess, scored one the other night, but then it was Matthews the night before that. And then it's just you're getting one goal from each of them a game. And you clearly need more than that to win in this league. You're not going to win any game scoring one goal in a game. So that's why they've lost the last three, because that's all they've scored. One goal in each of the 3 games. Just simply not good enough. And, now they head out on the road. I think it'll be a welcomed road trip. I think, the city is not that they're turning on the team, but they're starting to open up their eyes and see some flaws on this team. And it's like, especially on home ice, it just hasn't gone well. And really makes you wonder, like, what is this team truly? Because it's been kind of a tale of 2 halves, right? The first, kind of 6 to 8 weeks of the season, things look pretty good. Look like a team that was worthy of competing for the top spot in the Atlantic. The last few weeks, you haven't seen a team that looks like they're ready to compete for a Stanley Cup. And I don't know how to fix it. To be honest with you, I'm sure Berube's trying to figure it out. He's trying to get to these guys, but yeah, it's been a bit of a tough couple weeks here for the Maple Leafs. All right, on the other side, reinforcements could be coming on the upcoming road trip, though. We'll talk about that and Austin Matthews and whether or not he will or will not compete at the Four Nations Cup. We kind of got a little bit of confirmation in that today. Gets all that more next on the Locked On Leafs podcast. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. Pretty eventful morning skate we had ahead of the Minnesota game. John Tavares was on the ice. Matthew Knies was on the ice. Anthony Stolarz was on the ice. I believe Yarncroc was around at some point today. And obviously we saw Max Pacioretty got back into the lineup tonight. So it sounds like a team that, to be fair, we're talking about a lack of offense over the course of the last couple of weeks. They have missed out on a lot of their secondary scoring pieces. Tavares, Knies, Pacioretty. Those are 3 pretty big-time prominent secondary scores for this team. So, we should also acknowledge that if we're being completely fair and honest to ourselves. Yep. But it sounds like they could be very close and should be returning to the Maple Leafs at some point on this final 4-game Western road trip before the Four Nations tournament.
It's, like you're looking at what this team needs. This is the spark they need, like, is getting healthy and just balancing the lineup more. And yes, we're asking players who normally aren't asked to pitch in offensively to do it. But guess what? This is what teams have to do when you're going through, injuries. Other guys have to step up. It should galvanize the group. It hasn't. So, okay, then the next best thing is you got to hope in that players are able to come back. I think Tavares is likely for him to come back Saturday would probably be a bit unrealistic because he hasn't practiced. And same with Knies, but they got a few games left. They have 3 next week for them to give an opportunity to come back. And yeah,
and there's some practice days also. Like it's a pretty spread out schedule. I think it's Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. It's a pretty spread out schedule.
And you look at it too as if, like, things are going a certain way where the return of Cal Yarncroc is being talked about as like something that's needed. A guy who at least have not been able to depend on in over a year. People are like, when's Cal Yarncroc coming back? Because in a way, it's kind of needed.
I mean, he scored 20 goals for the team last year. He could kill penalties, something that the Leafs also have failed to do recently. Gave up another one tonight to, the Wild, the game-winning goal, technically, power play goal. There's a few things that he could really come in and help with, which opens up a whole nother can of worms. We could probably get into it when we get to it, but it is going to cause some sort of a ripple effect when it comes to the Leafs doing some cap gymnastics to, get everyone under the cap ceiling. Obviously, there's going to be some interesting decisions that are going to be made, the roster decisions as well. We'll get to that when we get there. But another guy who was spotted at practice this morning, someone who I think is arguably, like, I didn't realize how important how imminently important his return is. But Anthony Stolar's practice today, the Leafs need this guy back. I was digging into the numbers to see, how the Leafs have been doing goaltending wise since his departure. The Maple Leafs have the fourth worst save percentage since he got injured. Fourth worst save percentage in the league since his injury. They desperately need, and this is the player who currently, as it stands, I believe, still has the number one save percentage in the NHL among goaltenders who have played at least 17 games, such as Anthony Stolar. So they need this guy. He's been incredible this year. Their numbers, especially at home, those numbers have really fallen off here since Stolar's left, and it's been a big, weight on Woll. And it's not that he's played poorly. Stolar stole some games. Like the game he got hurt even against Jersey, like he was incredible that night against Jersey, right? When he got injured, they need this kid back. They need this guy back, and it looks like he also should be getting ready to return to the group prior to the Four Nations tournament in the next couple of games.
It's also like it's been a big workload for Joseph Woll too, and the team hasn't scored enough in front of him. Like we're like it's been duly noted, but like they need the dynamic duo back. It's a part of the reason why I think even though they weren't scoring, goaltending was giving them a chance each and every night, and they definitely need that.
Well, I'll tell you exactly how many goals this team has scored, or goals per game that the Leafs have scored since the injury, because it's been very, very few. We got 3.18 goals per game, but they've allowed 3.32 goals per game since the injury. So it's just, what's that, a -8 goal differential? Actually, that's a different team. -3 goal differential over the course of the last couple of weeks here, or last month, I suppose, that they've missed Anthony Stolar. So they need some better goaltending, that's for sure, especially since they're not getting the offense that they need. One other quick topic I want to bring up really quickly, and maybe it's something we can continue into tomorrow's show. Did you see the hoopla that your boy Nick Kyprios has started here in Toronto?
Oh, Kipper. Was it a Kipper's Clipper?
A little Kipper Clipper of suggesting a potential Morgan Rielly for JT Miller trade. Did you happen to see this Kipper Clipper?
Oh, I've seen. I was watching when I literally was watching when they were talking about it.
All right, give me your thoughts. What do you think about it?
I personally just don't see the league. Like, the thing is, I don't see where the Canucks view going after Rielly right now, given how his season has gone.
Thank you. I'm glad you came to that conclusion, because this is a no-brainer. I think if you're the Maple Leafs, you 100% would deal Morgan Rielly for JT Miller. I mean, it's tough because Rielly means so much to the organization. Wears the letter, wears heart on his sleeve, loves the city. He committed to the city. So, like, there's the sentimental value that Rielly obviously holds. But in terms of being the better player, being the better fit, being exactly what Toronto kind of needs, this would be a no-brainer trade for the Maple Leafs to make. This makes no sense from Vancouver's perspective, especially the way that Morgan Rielly has played recently. And they've got Quinn Hughes, who, I mean, obviously is a much better defender, but like, that's the puck mover on that blue line, right? Filip Hronek can move the puck on that blue line. They don't need a puck moving blue liner who makes $8 million, who's a defensive liability. They just don't need it. They really don't.
They need to be better. They need to be better defensively. Vancouver, you're going to go and add the defenseman who's really struggled at that it just
Who's
made
been
no
on the
sense.
ice? Who's been on the ice for 17 more goals against than for?
And look, like I'm also gonna say, like, it's not like JT Miller's having a stellar season himself. I'll put that
No.
out there. But I'm also eerie about this whole situation with him and Pedersen, and like who's really, we don't know what the actual beef is about. But I'm
Yeah.
like, JT Miller has gone through, like, went from New York to Tampa to Vancouver. Like, this is a guy who's moved around a bit. Like, I get very
There's
eerie about
questions.
the
There's
chemistry,
question
right?
marks.
How it
Yeah.
impacts the chemistry of the team when you go and you bring in a guy who's been through this situation. Now, maybe just a change of scenery will just reinvigorate him. I probably would assume so.
What are you changing though? Like, the Leafs have been a losing franchise since 1967. You know, it's not like it's the Rantanen deal where that was a winning club. That was a winning formula. That was a ballsy trade that may or may
Yep.
not work out. I mean, if I don't even know why we're even having this conversation now, because I don't believe this is even remotely close to being a deal that makes sense for really either side, I suppose. But yeah, I wouldn't be worried about ruining the minutia of the Maple Leafs. It's not like it's been a winning formula, you know, the way it is with the current Fab Five or whatever the hell we're calling that, you know, that group now. So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting little note that Leafs Nation started kind of talking about a little bit today. I thought we put our 2 cents into
Put
it,
in the
but
Discord. They're throwing out those trade ideas. So
yeah, look, I'm all for it. JT, I've been pushing Dave.
yeah, I
How
know.
long have I been pushing JT Miller to the Canucks? I mean, I've been
Oh, the
pushing
Canucks.
this for the last 3 years, right? Like, he is exactly what the Leafs need. But I don't see how Morgan Rielly is the piece that lands a JT Miller. I mean, that would just be pure desperation for the Canucks to make that deal, where they're so desperate to move Miller out of the organization, out of the locker room, that they're willing to take on, you know, an aging, declining Morgan Rielly who still has what, 5-6 years left on his deal at $8 million. It's tough. It's a tough
I
ask
think it's
for a team to do.
7.5 for Riley, but
7.5. All right. Either way, it could have been 6.5, and it still wouldn't have been worth it if you're Jimmy Rutherford in Vancouver. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. And Rutherford's comments yesterday kind of kicking it into high gear again, saying it's an unfixable situation, which to hear a GM talk about that, basically come out and say, yeah, we have to trade one of them. So give us your offers. One of them's going. Highest bidder gets one. And I don't think the Leafs have nearly what it takes unless they put like a Willie or a Mitch on the table for a JT Miller, which I do not expect to happen. No, I don't think JT Miller is the Marty Nakash of the Rantanen deal, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Don't think that is the case. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow to tee up this weekend's matchup against the Edmonton Oilers. So that's on tomorrow's show. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.